The aerialist hit her mark until her grip failed. The skier found his line until the ice betrayed him. The lifter held the weight until the muscle gave out. These are the moments when routine competition turned fatal, right in front of the people who came to watch. On February 4, 2016, the Osaka Winter Invitational hosted its women's artistic gymnastics finals inside the Midori Sports Hall in Osaka, Japan. The competition brought in junior and senior athletes from several countries. The venue was a mid-sized indoor arena that seated about 5,000 spectators. The lighting was bright, the floor mats had been cleaned earlier that morning, and the temperature inside stayed around 72 degrees Fahrenheit, thanks to industrial heaters placed behind the stands. One of the athletes competing was Elena Marquez, a 17-year-old American gymnast from a small training center in Arizona. She was not one of the top names in the national program, but she had been improving quickly over the past 2 years. Elena originally trained as an all-around competitor, but her coaches believed she had the most potential on bars and vault. She was known for clean handstands and steady beam work, though her vaulting progress had been uneven. That year, her coaching team encouraged her to add a more difficult vault, a round-off entry style similar to a Yurchenko. She had landed it cleanly only a handful of times. Coaches noted that she sometimes hit the springboard too close or too far, making her block off the vault inconsistent. Even so, they believed a higher value vault would improve her chances of qualifying for summer competitions. The invitational finals were scheduled to begin at 11 a.m. Spectators filled the lower seating areas first, while teams warmed up on each apparatus. The vault runway extended across the right side of the arena, marked with tape for takeoff spacing. A safety mat required for the round-off entry was placed in front of the springboard. During the warm-up rotation, Elena began practicing her vault entries. She jogged through several approaches without flipping, working on her steps. On her fourth run, a judge sitting near the landing mat later reported that her round-off looked tight, meaning her arms didn't fully extend during her quarter turn. A teammate also mentioned afterward that Elena had been adjusting her steps more often than usual. At 11:23 a.m., the final warm-up period started. Music played softly over the speakers as athletes prepared. Elena stood at the back of the runway, waiting for the signal from her coach. The crowd was moderately loud from the other events happening at the same time. When the signal came, Elena began her run. Several spectators watching from the right side bleachers later described seeing her take her steps faster than in earlier runs. As she reached the end of the runway, her round-off was slightly off-center, causing her body to angle toward the right. Her hands hit the mat unevenly. Instead of pushing cleanly into the springboard, her right foot landed too close to the edge. Witnesses sitting behind the vault said they heard a light slipping sound as her foot skidded off the board. The slip caused her chest to dip forward as she hit the front of the vaulting table. Her forehead and shoulder made contact first. The impact stopped her momentum instantly, and she dropped straight down onto the mat below the horse. The music in the arena continued for a few seconds before staff members realized what had happened. A coach standing near the uneven bars waved his arms, and the judges signaled to halt warm-ups. 2 staff members ran to Elena while several gymnasts stepped back from the runway. Elena lay motionless on the mat. Her legs had folded beneath her, and her arms were angled awkwardly near her sides. The medical team reached her within moments. Team personnel pulled a curtain divider across the front portion of the mat to block the view, while responders worked. Announcements were made in Japanese and English, instructing the audience to remain in their seats. The other events in the arena were paused. A stretcher was brought to the vault area. Several coaches and athletes stood at a distance, talking quietly among themselves. The warm-up timers were shut off, and judges gathered near their table with clipboards in hand, waiting for direction from the event officials. After some time, organizers announced that vault warm-ups were canceled and that further information would be given once the situation was evaluated. Spectators began to shift in their seats, and the arena noise dropped to a low murmur. Later that afternoon, officials released a statement confirming that Elena Marquez had suffered fatal neck and spinal injuries from the vaulting impact. The nature of the trauma, a catastrophic axial loading to the cervical spine, left no room for hope. The vault finals were immediately removed from the schedule. The remaining apparatus events proceeded, but the celebratory air of the invitational was gone, replaced by a pall of tragedy. The Midori Sports Hall added additional runway padding for future competitions, and the event committee revised its warm-up procedures the following season. Elsewhere, On a frozen mountain course, another routine was set to fail, a mistake as sudden and as final as the one made on the vault mat. On June 18, 2016, the Riverbend Theater in Mesa, Arizona, held its summer action show inside a medium-sized performance hall. The building seated a little over 1,800 people, with steep rows of chairs rising above a stage built from reinforced wood panels. The theater was known for weekend stunt programs that mixed martial arts, wire work, and light acrobatics. It wasn't a large company, but local families often went there for inexpensive entertainment. The cast for that summer included a small group of aerial performers who used harnesses and cable rigs to move across sections of the set. Temperatures outside reached 104 degrees Fahrenheit that afternoon, and even with strong air conditioning, the theater felt warm. According to staff members, the rigging system had been checked earlier that morning, and no issues were recorded. One of the performers was Daniel Ortiz, a 29-year-old part-time acrobat who also worked at a local hardware store. He had grown up practicing basic gymnastics at community centers and later joined small stunt groups that performed at county fairs and festivals. Daniel wasn't widely known, but people in the group described him as reliable with routine wirework jobs. He had been with the Riverbend show for 3 seasons and mainly handled mid-height aerial scenes that involved horizontal movement rather than high vertical lifts. That evening, the show began at 7 p.m. The crowd was large and most seats were filled. For the final act, the set rotated to reveal a vertical wall structure about 30 feet tall. The performers were supposed to run along the wall using their harnesses, then cross paths in a choreographed pattern. The cables were anchored to a metal frame above the stage, with a winch operator controlling their movement from the side platform. Daniel's task in this sequence was simple. He would be lifted about 24 feet from the stage floor, run diagonally across the vertical wall, and swing outward during a planned jump moment. He had practiced it many times. According to 2 stagehands, he completed the routine without issues during every rehearsal that week. At about 7:46 p.m., the final act began. People in the front rows brought out their phones, and the music track played at moderate volume. Daniel was lifted into position along with 2 other performers. Witnesses later said everything looked normal. The cables were steady, and the performers were aligned along their starting marks. When the cue light flashed, Daniel stepped forward and began his run. The audience watched him move across the wall at an angle, following the routine. About halfway through, he pushed off into the planned outward swing. At that moment, several people in the middle rows reported seeing his harness shift slightly to the right side. There was no loud snap, but multiple witnesses said they heard a short metallic sound, like a buckle catching. Almost immediately, Daniel's cable went slack. His harness slid upward along his torso, and then he dropped. According to later statements, he fell nearly straight down, hitting the lower frame section before landing on the stage floor. The distance was estimated at about 22 to 24 feet. The theater went silent for a few seconds, followed by scattered shouts from different sections of the audience. One of the other performers signaled toward the side platform, and the crew cut the music. The 2 remaining aerial performers were lowered onto the stage, while staff rushed toward Daniel. The stage manager stepped forward and asked the audience to stay seated while the curtain was slowly brought down. Several people in the first rows later said that Daniel did not show any sign of movement after the fall. A prop handler placed marking tape around the area to keep space clear until emergency staff reached the stage. The show ended immediately, and the audience was guided out through the rear exit doors. Many people walked quietly toward the parking lot, and a few mentioned to each other that they had believed the fall was part of the scene until they saw the crew waving for help. The investigation reveals that the harness and cable system was used for the act. Inspectors examined the platform where Daniel landed, the metal frame he struck on the way down, and the spacing of the rigging points above the stage. According to the report released later that evening, Daniel died from multiple blunt force injuries sustained during the fall, including trauma to the head, chest, and abdomen. The impact with the lower frame section caused the most severe injuries, and investigators noted that the height of the fall, estimated at 22 to 24 feet, left little chance of survival once the harness gave way. The company suspended all aerial acts for the remainder of the season, and investigators collected the rigging equipment for inspection. Technicians removed the cables, harness components, and connection hardware to analyze them off-site. The Riverbend Theater took additional steps as well. The entire wall structure used for the final act was dismantled before the next set of shows, and management released a short notice stating that the closing number would be redesigned without any wire-assisted stunts. But Daniel wasn't the only performer whose night took a fatal turn. On a racing circuit thousands of miles away, an Italian racer faced a split-second loss of control at full speed. On September 25, 2016, the Sundara International Circuit in southern Thailand hosted its annual Grand Prix. The track was known for its long straights and a difficult right-hand turn at turn 11, where the asphalt narrowed slightly before opening again toward the final sector. Temperatures that afternoon were in the low 90s degrees Fahrenheit, and humidity was high. The asphalt surface had been absorbing heat all day, leaving parts of the track with faint waves of rising air. The grandstands were full. More than 45,000 spectators packed the main straight seating area, with another several thousand spread across hillside sections overlooking the last sector. The event drew riders from multiple international teams, including veterans and young riders hoping for a chance at bigger contracts. One of the riders that season was Lorenzo Vitali, a 27-year-old Italian racer on the Revento Pacific team. He wasn't one of the top names in the sport. He had spent most of his career in Europe's intermediate championships before joining the team as a second-seat rider. His results for the year were steady but not remarkable. Regular mid-pack finishes, a few top 10 results during wet races, and one near podium earlier that season in Indonesia. Vitali grew up in Rimini and learned racing on small displacement bikes before advancing to regional mini-bike championships. He earned a reputation for clean lines and predictable riding, traits valued by teams looking for riders who could finish races reliably. The Sundara track, however, was one he had never ridden before this season. The race began at 2 p.m. The early laps were fast, with riders maintaining tight formation as they moved through the first sector. Turn 11, located after a long sweeping left, required riders to shift weight quickly to the right side of the bike while braking lightly. Many had commented during practice that the corner demanded firm control due to patchy grip areas on the entry. By lap 2, the lead pack was already separating from the midfield. Vitali held fourth place after a strong start. Behind him were several experienced riders, including a Japanese competitor riding for a satellite team and another Italian rider with one career win. As the riders approached turn 10, spectators near the hill section noticed a small wiggle in the rear of Vitali's bike. It wasn't dramatic, but a few fans later said it looked like the rear tire momentarily lost grip when he accelerated out of the corner. At racing speeds, small movements could be signs of nothing, or signals that a bike was lightly stepping out of line. The group entered the short straight, leading to turn 11. Speeds reached over 100 miles per hour. As riders leaned into the corner, Vitali's bike suddenly shifted. Eyewitnesses in the grandstand later described seeing the rear tire slide slightly toward the outside. For a moment, it looked like a routine loss of traction that most riders corrected through countersteering and throttle control. But as the bike slid toward the edge of the racing line, the tires suddenly caught grip again. The traction return caused the motorcycle to snap upright and veer sharply across the track. With his body shifted to the right for the lean, Vitali was pulled toward the inside as the bike changed direction. Several people watching from the big screen in the fence said they saw his right shoulder dip downward as he hung off the side of the bike, unable to recover his balance. Two riders behind him had no time to avoid him. One hit the back of Vitali's bike at an angle, the second clipped his front wheel. Both impacts happened almost simultaneously. Vitali's helmet struck the asphalt as he was pushed sideways, still partly attached to the low side of the motorcycle. His bike skidded several yards before spinning into the runoff area. Flags went up immediately, and race control red flagged the event. Track workers ran toward the crash zone, and the medical team was dispatched from the pit lane. Spectators in multiple sections stood up, some pointing toward the far right portion of the track, where the group of bikes came to rest. Vitali did not show any signs of movement after the second impact. Workers surrounded him as medical staff reached the scene. The other two riders were also attended to, though both were seen upright shortly afterward. The race did not restart. More than 20 minutes passed before an announcement was made over the loudspeakers stating that the event had officially ended for the day. A second announcement followed, informing the audience that a rider had suffered severe injuries. Later, Officials confirmed that Lorenzo Vitali died from severe head and chest trauma caused by the dual impact at turn 11. The first strike, when his helmet hit the asphalt, produced a rapid deceleration injury consistent with a high-speed low-side fall. The second collision, when another rider's front wheel made contact with his upper body, caused additional blunt force damage to the ribs and sternum, leading to internal bleeding that left no possibility of survival at the scene. Medical staff on site noted that the combined impacts happened within seconds, giving him no opportunity to regain control or protect himself. The team released a short statement acknowledging the nature of his injuries, and race organizers reviewed track footage and rider telemetry to document the exact sequence that led to the crash. The Sundara International Circuit added a new grip treatment to turn 11 for the next season. Lorenzo's crash shut down the entire event. Far from the track, a downhill skier approached a thin patch of snow that left him with no chance to recover. On February 2, 2017, the Alpine Winter Challenge held its men's downhill training session at the Kaltberg Ski Arena in western Austria. The venue was built along a wide mountainside, with steep wooded areas lining the lower half of the run. The racecourse stretched for more than a mile and included several fast straightaways that dropped sharply into narrow sections bordered by trees. Temperatures stayed around 29 degrees Fahrenheit, with hard, icy snow left over from the week's artificial grooming. The Kaltberg course had been rebuilt that winter because of unusually low snowfall. Large sections of the hill were patched with machine-made snow that sat on top of frozen dirt. The organizers had transported truckloads of snow from neighboring valleys, but the coverage remained thin. Course workers placed sandbags around some trees, though many spots had no padding at all. Among the athletes entered that week was Aaron Whitlock, a 19-year-old downhill skier from New Zealand. His team was small, made up of only 3 racers and 1 coach. Aaron had grown up training on narrow South Island slopes, and while he wasn't a well-known name, he had earned a place on the winter circuit after a strong showing in regional competitions the year before. His coaches liked his calm technique and his ability to hold a line on difficult ice. The Kaltberg track was new to Aaron. He had arrived only 2 days earlier and completed a slow inspection run. Although he usually preferred long, smooth courses, he accepted that this hill required quick reactions and precise steering. Several older racers had privately said the course felt overloaded with athletes during practice, since all 112 competitors were released for training at the same time. The training run began just before 10 a.m. A light wind pushed snow dust across the upper section. Spectators gathered along the fence near the finish zone, and volunteers stationed themselves around key turns with radios. Coaches stood on the sidelines shouting timing splits as skiers passed each interval. Aaron started his run at 11:12 a.m. He pushed out of the start gate and moved into a low tuck position. Early observers noticed he held a clean line through the first sector, passing the first timing zone near the middle of the field. As he approached the ridge drop, a steep pitch known for rapid acceleration, skiers below waited for their own turn to start. A few racers had slowed to talk with their teammates near the edge of the course. The middle section of the run opened into a straight stretch. A group of athletes, after completing their runs, had stopped near the outside of the straightaway while waiting for course workers to reset a fallen gate. Radio calls later confirmed that race control had not ordered them to move away from the line. Aaron entered the straight at an estimated speed of 40 to 45 miles per hour. Spectators standing along a nearby overlook reported that he appeared steady until he passed a small roller where his skis bounced slightly. As he regained contact with the snow, he saw the stopped group of racers only seconds ahead. According to witnesses, the athletes were positioned too close to the racing line. Aaron shifted his weight left to avoid them. The quick adjustment caused his left ski to catch a raised patch where the artificial snow met the ice. The ski edge locked, sending him off balance. He tried to compensate, but the force of the turn pulled him outward toward the tree line. People near the barrier later said they heard the scrape of his skis as he fought to stay upright. He traveled only a few yards before losing full control. His skis crossed and he slid off the course at high speed, striking a tree trunk just past the edge of the run. The area went quiet for a moment before coaches started waving for help. Volunteers radioed course control, and the next racer waiting at the start gate was held back. A group of staff members reached Aaron quickly. They positioned a tarp around the crash site while medical personnel arrived from the finish zone on a tracked rescue sled. Just after noon, the organizers announced that the training session was canceled for the day. Later that afternoon, event officials released a short statement confirming that Aaron Whitlock had died from the injuries he suffered when he struck the tree line at high speed. Medical staff reported that the impact caused multiple blunt force traumas, including severe chest compression, rib fractures, and damage to major blood vessels, along with a catastrophic head injury from the initial collision. These combined injuries were described as unsurvivable on scene, with no practical way to stabilize him on the course. In response, course workers added extra padding to the lower section and adjusted the athlete flow for the remaining training days. But Aaron wasn't the only one whose run ended faster than anyone expected. Inside a California gym, a weightlifter stepped under a bar that slipped before anyone could react. On March 6, 2018, the Ironform Training Center in Bakersfield, California, opened its strength area early for competitive lifters preparing for the spring regional powerlifting meet. The gym sat in a converted warehouse on the edge of town, with concrete floors, exposed metal beams, and a separate room lined with lifting platforms. The air inside was cool from overnight temperatures, around 57 degrees Fahrenheit, and most of the athletes wore hoodies during warm-up sets. Ironform often hosted local lifters who wanted access to heavy racks and competition-style bars. The facility kept a collection of calibrated plates, including several heavier sets locked in a storage cabinet used only for supervised training. One of the athletes training that morning was Riley Hart, a 17-year-old high school student who competed in the junior division. She was known in the area for her steady progress in squat and deadlift. Riley had earned a few medals at county meets and had placed well at the previous year's state qualifier. Her coaches believed she had the potential to enter national-level youth competitions within the next 2 seasons. Riley trained 3 afternoons a week, but on the day of the accident, she had come in early because her coach wanted to test her form with heavier loads. She had already completed warm-ups on the stationary bike and moved into mobility drills on the lifting platform. 2 other athletes were in the room, along with her coach, who stood behind the squat rack adjusting the spotter arms. The gym used a standard power rack with adjustable safety bars, but earlier that morning, another lifter had lowered the safety height for their own session. Riley and her coach planned to increase the weight gradually during the workout. The goal was not a personal record, but a controlled heavy single to prepare for the upcoming meet. At around 8:10 a.m., Riley began her squat sets using 135 pounds, then 185, then 215, all with steady form. Her coach added more plates, checking each collar to make sure it was tight. After another rest period, Riley prepared to attempt a heavier load that approached her last competition squat. Several athletes later confirmed that the weight on the bar was near the upper limit of what junior lifters usually attempt in training. Riley positioned herself under the bar, settled her shoulders, and stepped back into her stance. The gym was quiet, except for the sound of plates clinking on another platform across the room. Her coach stood close behind her, prepared to assist if she lost balance. On the descent, witnesses said her form looked stable. She reached depth, began to rise, then stalled halfway up. Her knees shifted inward slightly, and the coach moved closer to help guide the bar upward. As he reached to assist, the bar rolled a few inches across her upper back. The sudden shift caused her to tilt forward. Before either of them could adjust, Riley attempted to step forward to steady herself, but her right foot slipped on a patch of chalk near the front of the platform. The movement caused the bar to swing forward, pulling her out of position. The load exceeded what she could control in that angle. The bar fell from her shoulders faster than her coach could react. It came down across the upper part of her neck when she slipped a second time, trying to step away from the rack. The impact forced her forward onto her knees while the coach reached out, trying to lift the bar off her back. His hand caught the edge of a plate, causing a minor cut on his palm. The sound of the bar hitting the platform echoed through the room, and both nearby athletes dropped their equipment and ran toward the rack. One pulled the remaining plates off one side of the bar to reduce the weight while the coach held the opposite end to keep it from rolling. Together, they lifted the load enough to slide it away from Riley. She showed no response and remained motionless on the platform. Someone shouted toward the front desk for help, and a staff member ran to call emergency services. The athletes cleared space around her, and the coach knelt beside her while the staff member returned with a first aid kit. Emergency responders arrived shortly after. Staff directed them through the side entrance, and the gym temporarily closed the strength room while the responders worked. Later that afternoon, officials released a short statement confirming that Riley Hart had died from severe neck injuries caused by the bar impact during training. According to the report, the force of the falling bar created a high-energy compression to the upper cervical spine, fracturing multiple vertebrae and damaging the spinal cord at the level that controls breathing and motor function. Witness accounts noted that Riley had shown no movement after the impact, and medical responders stated that the injury was immediately non-survivable due to the extent of structural damage to the neck. Following the incident, the gym raised the safety bar height on all racks, installed secondary catch arms designed for heavy youth training, and introduced new rules requiring 2 spotters for any lift above a set threshold. The updated policy also mandated form checks and supervisor approval before younger athletes could attempt heavier loads. Subscribe now to unlock more stories of catastrophic failure and fatal accidents. I'll see you in the next one.